Great, Greg. Okay. Fantastic. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a quick roll call so we can get things started. Greg Walsh. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Danny Steyer.
Yep.
Lyda Scoggin. Oh, I gotcha. Yep. Okay. Marcia Roby.
Yep, here.
Thank you. Matt Fogarty.
Here.
Gotcha. Thanks, Matt. And Shelby Lung.
Here.
Thanks, Shelby. All right. I know that Kaylee Bentz is unable to join us today. But we do have a quorum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with that, may I go ahead and get a motion to approve today's agenda, please?
I so move, Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Are there any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Next item, approval of the September 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve those?
Yeah, I move to approve those minutes.
Shelby seconds it.
Thank you, Lyda. Thank you, Shelby. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes across the board. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, well, great. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Any public input? I know that we have Sherry Pryor and Kes Porter joining us today. Anything you all would like to share?
No, just
Okay.
thanks again for the invitation.
Of course, yep. I'd say that overall publicly, there's just a lot of activity that's been going on, which is good. So there's the Riley's Jerky hosted a chili and chowder cook-off on Saturday. There was also the monthly Saturday, or the first Saturday of the month, market at Crescent Country. And I know that Lisa Forcino is following that up next weekend with a car show, a classic car show that'll also be at Crescent Country. And then that last weekend of October, there's a tremendous amount of activity, the weekend before Halloween. So there's a harvest festival that's going to be taking place at Greenville Elementary School from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I know that they were looking for community participation to run a booth, activity, that type of thing. They reached out to us. I did it last year. And I may do it again this year, but it's just that Saturday is very busy because we have our community meeting from 11 to 1, and then we'll be doing a small cookout for anybody representing organizations, hosted by PG&E. So I just don't know if I can get to the Harvest Festival, but if anybody's interested in it, Jennifer Martin, who's the school secretary, and Nikki Rodriguez, who's the principal, are looking for additional booth attendees. There's also a pet parade on that Saturday as well. That'll be starting at the Spot, I believe, at 12 noon. And that's a fundraiser. And that's a fundraiser for the Dixie Fire Canopy Project. And let me see what else.
How does that work? How do they make it a fundraiser?
I don't know, Marcia. I think because there's an entry fee
Okay.
associated with it. So 12 p.m. location parade begins at the Spot in Greenville. 2 $10 entry fee. All proceeds go to the Dixie Fire Canopy Project. There will be a contest with prizes for each category. Please arrive 30 minutes early to fill out your entry forms and pay your entry fee. So that is the Halloween Pet Parade. Also on October 26th.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And if so, what are you dressing her up as?
So yeah, so those are just a number of the things that are happening community-wide. And then that October 25th, that Friday, there'll be another football game at the high school. Yeah, so lots of stuff going on that weekend. A couple other things before we're kind of waiting on some of the folks from the Almanor Foundation to and specifically the Plumas County Housing Council to get on the call. But on December 18th, Tracy Ferguson, she'll send out a flyer here in the next day or two, but planning director, she'll send out a flyer for the RSF working group or working group October meeting, which will be December 18th at the Mineral Building in Quincy from 9:30 to 11. So 9:30 to 11 on Friday, October 18th. And there will be a Zoom link for that on her flyer as well.
Okay, good.
So that
What time did you say, Roy?
9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Yeah. I'm out of town. I'm out of town from like the 14th to the 26th.
14th to the 26th. Okay. Yeah. Make sure that you get a Zoom link, Greg, and it'll be on the flyer. And if you're so inclined, you can tune in there.
If I have reception, I'll be somewhere around Mammoth somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Welcome. All right. So we've got, in addition to some of our other folks that have been on the call, welcome Kim Dufour from North Valley Community Foundation. And then it looks like we have the team from the Almanor Foundation, specifically the Housing Committee. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. And they're going around the horn. It looks like we have Susan Briner, Tyler Pugh, Judy Chinawith, and Josh Huddleston. All right. Oh, hi, Julie. Sorry, didn't see you there. Thanks for turning the camera. All right. So again, the team's all there. Great. All right. So just moving on with our agenda items. Any other general updates? Specifically, Danny, did you want to elaborate any further on the treasurer's update from what you sent out?
No, I think that hopefully everybody can read that, understood that we just had, I think, documented the interest that we accrued as well as our support of with the Dixie Canopy project there. So with their, so that's the only things that I had.
Okay. Are there any questions specifically for Danny on his report from when he last sent it out? No. Okay, thanks, team. All right, well, we'll go ahead and just kind of move up on our timeline a little bit since we do have the team from the Almanor Foundation, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you all up there in Chester. If you just wanted to kind of do a quick, I think I kind of covered it a little bit, but maybe some brief introductions with specifically who you are and then what your role is specifically as it relates to the Housing Committee would be helpful for, I think, the broader audience here.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. So I'm not sure I got it. You want us to go around and introduce ourselves individually and our roles?
Yes, please. I think that would be helpful just for the team.
Great. Hi, everybody. Some of you I've seen before, maybe most of you. Anyway, I'm Judy Chinawith. I'm chair of the Almanor Foundation, but specifically, I'm chair of the Housing Committee that has been working on the TAF housing initiative for over 2 years. And I'm going to pass it over to Susan.
I'm Susan Briner, Vice Chair of the Almanor Foundation, and I guess a late comer to the Housing Committee, although I've been part of the initiative for a couple of years as well.
Julie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Childers. I am the treasurer on the board of Almanor Foundation, and I bring skepticism to the community.
Beneficial skepticism.
Right,
Thank
right,
you.
right, for sure.
Josh Huddleston, Secretary of the Almanor Foundation and committee member of the Housing Council.
And
Hi everyone, Tyler Pugh, Element OP Design. We've been a contractor with the Almanor Foundation for 2 years now, trying to figure out this very complex subject.
Great. Well, thank you all very much.
In the area.
Appreciate it.
We also have
Um,
who's behind the camera. He's running our AV tech right now. There's waving right now. So that's Ben Hoffman with Element OP Design, taking the lead on. Yeah.
Great. Hey, Ben, thanks. All right. Well, so for the team there, did you want to go ahead and describe kind of introduction style and apprise this team on where you are, where you've been, and more importantly, where you want to go? That's kind of what I understood of today's presentation?
yes, thank you so much, Patrick, and thank you to the steering committee for welcoming us into this conversation. I'm going to do my best to give a history and invite Tyler and other members of the Housing Committee to chime in or correct me if I get lost or wrong. So obviously, housing left after the fire, housing left from being really a serious problem to a chronic and acute problem in Plymouth County. And as the foundation emerged and grew, it became clear to us that this was a very important initiative for us to take on. There just wasn't anybody else in the moment that was ready to tackle this complex and difficult issue. And we were very lucky, extremely lucky, to be able to make a connection with Element OP because those of us on the committee have some, especially Susan, I think, had more housing expertise than anybody else in the committee starting out. But we have all learned a tremendous amount in the process. It became very clear to us that there was not enough resource in our local area to solve our housing problem, and that eventually we would need to reach outside of Plymouth County to bigger foundations, to other sources of funding to move in the right direction in solving our workforce housing problem. And in order to prepare ourselves to do that, we really needed good assessment and good planning. And that's why the first thing that we did was fund Element OP to develop a strategic housing plan. And along with money from DFC and from North Valley and various other sources, Element OP, along with others in collaboration, had done a heavy-duty needs assessment, which involved a lot of community members and informed the development of the strategic plan, which was completed in
23. Yeah.
2023.
Fall of 20, spring of 23, actually. Yeah.
Right. So after that plan was developed, we began to think about implementation strategies, and I have to give the Housing Committee and also Element OP a lot of kudos for sort of finding their way through a morass. And some of the solutions that we initially came up with didn't work out. And that's okay, because you have to keep moving forward, even though you're not certain that you're going to be successful in every step. And we've learned a lot from every step that we've taken along the way. And now we are feeling confident because we have some clear implementation steps, and we have a developer. We have 2 developers. And one of our biggest worries from the very beginning was who would want to develop workforce housing in Plymouth County, because if it was easy, it would have been done. We wouldn't be in this crisis. So we now have 2 developers that are interested in workforce housing, and RRA, recovery and reconstruction analysts, advisors, thank you, did a first step by agreeing to have LMNOP contract with them under our existing contract with LMNOP to develop this housing calculator, which is a way of understanding the financial terms. What kind of variables can we manipulate so that we can get the costs down to a level that would work? So we're now at a place where we have 4 very clear ideas about next steps, but we're also clear that that we cannot do this alone. We started the Housing Council in the hope that there would be leadership emerging in other areas of the community. And right now, what the council is doing is basically networking and sharing information. And that's really an important thing, but it's not the forward momentum that we're looking for. And really, the Almanor Foundation alone cannot continue to move this forward. I do want to, while I'm seeing Kim's face, I do want to thank North Valley Community Foundation for giving us a capacity building grant that enabled us to move forward and do as much as we have done. TAF has done, but now we're really, frankly, we want to be in a partnership with you guys. We want to understand how important is housing to the Dixie Fire Collaborative, and how what's your level of interest in working in partnership with others to see about making these 4 implementation steps a reality. And with that, I'm going to stop. How did I do? Anything to add?
Really
So I think we're open for questions from
maybe just
you
a
guys.
couple clarifying things really quickly. Language is really important in the sector of housing. So you could say workforce affordable housing, but some people's perception of that might be like Section 8 housing, or voucher-based programs, or any type of subsidy. What we're really talking about is 80% and above AMI, so 80% area median income. So the way it goes is counties and regionals have area median income. So what is the median income across an area? Federal and state programs meet needs of 80% and below. That's what they're all targeted for at the end of the day. We have a workforce population that really exists, some above, some below, for sure, and 80% below, but a lot that exists 80% to 120%, up to 160, even 200% AMI that we need housing stock for. Those are not qualified for federal or state grant programs or things like that. It's called the missing middle income housing stock that is affordable at the end of the day, because the cost of the construction and the cost of the housing stuff is so high in relationship income that it is. So really what we're looking at is, let's our focus within workforce attainable housing stock is outside of the traditional federal or state programs. Why is that important? Those federal and state programs are great, again, for 80% and below, our low income population. The challenge is a lot of our population exists above that and also will not sign up for those programs. The other thing is they're very slow and they're very expensive, meaning for a lot of the tax credits are 4 to 7 years out, meaning we won't see housing stock for 4 to 7 years once we apply for a tax credit if we were a developer. And so this problem has multiple, it's called a polycrisis at the end of the day, meaning many crises happening at the same time, meaning the cost of construction, our rural climate, our affordability to our local workforce, our local access to labor, those kind of issues. And so what we've done is we've really taken this polycrisis and figured out a very clear path forward that has 4 kind of components to it. And the biggest component that we're looking at with the developer is it addresses the 2 fundamental issues that we had around housing. Who is going to be the developer, meaning who holds the financing, runs the construction teams, owns the title to the property, all of the tasks on the developer. We could not find anyone in the county that wanted to step up and into that position. So we don't have a developer, so we needed a developer. The other thing is no one wants to property manage. We've talked to entities, businesses, and individuals that will build real estate on their property, but they won't do it because they don't want to deal with the property management end of it on the back end of it. And so our core biggest solution that we've gotten to is a developer that will develop the real estate and will be the property manager of it. And we've figured out a financial mechanism, financial way of actually getting that done, of a target of 45 units in 3 years. This is huge. In me talking with people across the state of California, everyone is trying to figure out this problem right now, not just rural communities. And this, for us, is a great solution. It's not a perfect solution. There's challenges with it, but it is a solution for us that we can actually move forward against, and it also addresses the 2 biggest things, developer and property manager. So we're really fundamentally, I'm really excited about having banged my head against a wall until I'm like numb around this challenge and this issue. Meeting with people across the entire state around this. I'm incredibly hopeful and optimistic as a strategy for us to move forward. The 3 other components of this are ones that support it or move or basically augment it, but aren't this kind of core root strategy of building the housing stock at the end of the day. So basically our goal with today is to say, hey, we might have solutions. We would love to have conversations with the DFC that runs through those solutions. And we would love to like have conversations of what is the role of each partnership and what would that look like? Because at the end of the day, as Judy said right at the beginning, no single entity is going to carry the load of housing in our county, period. We might be able to build 1, 2, 10 housing stock, but it's not going to address the 1,000+ need that we have across the county as a whole, let alone the burn scar itself. So we need to figure out a strategy that is sustainable in the long term, that allows us to stair step up into the housing stock that we need. And I think we've arrived there. If the DFC steering committee is interested in having this conversation.
Just real quick, and then we'll get to Danny's question. And if you could just review, so I think you sort of indicated a couple of the implementation steps there. Could you just review real quick all 4 of your, just kind of lay out the 4 implementation steps?
Yeah, I didn't want to go like deep into the weeds because we could take up these.
That's
2
fine.
hours.
Yeah, just the wave tops, just a basic description. Wave tops are fine.
So number 1 is developer, basically investment in a developer that is building the housing stock and acting as the property manager. And that's investment versus grant making. Strategy number 2 is an organization called PlaceMate, which is a software-based entity that helps and creates rent subsidies within the county. What that means is it helps activate underutilized housing stock by adding a subsidy for renters to make it affordable for them. And this exists outside of the, you can Google them, Placemate, check them out. They're working in 13 different regions. Just, Ben, can you throw it in the chat box? Thanks. So Placemate is strategy number 2. Strategy number 3, or not strategy, implementation. We need to get out of strategies. Actionable step is the third one. Is we in the Plymouth County have a existing lease to own model to help first time buyers called TRIO, TRIO. Can you put the county website with the TRIO program on there? This is within Plymouth County already with Roger Diefendorf, who oversees the housing authority in the county. And this is kind of an underutilized resource because there's not a lot of marketing for it, or there's not been capacity to build up the program. But at its core is it's helping first-time homeowners that typically won't qualify in a lease-to-own model. So that's number 3. And number 4 is to help those that are developing workforce attainable reduce their cost of construction by basically having a wholesale company that takes out like a retail yards profit margin and things like that. Now we could say, well, we don't want that to happen because that would lower mountain building supply, or it may actually cost them. But the reality is these builders are going to look to Home Depot and Reno and Chico and shipping materials in because that's the cost they're looking at. And we're not talking about all the housing stock. So what that is kind of supporting a wholesaling entity is what I'm calling that. That reduces the cost per build on the construction of these workforce attainable housing.
Great, thank you, Tyler. Danny, you had a question. Danny Starr.
Yeah, it's great, Patrick, thanks. That was the first question I had was on the 4 components. So I just wanted to get that high level, what are the 4 components? That was my first question, but thanks, Tyler. Appreciate that. The other question is, what's TAF?
Oh, that's the Almanor Foundation, sorry.
TAF is
The T.
Almanor Foundation.
the Almanor. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. I have to, and I'm slow. I'm an engineer. I'm slow. I don't get all these things. You have to spell it out to me.
I
All right.
apologize.
Danny, that's a TLA. That's
Yeah,
a
there you go, TLA.
You know that, right?
But I
TLA,
needed TLA for TLA.
Yeah, TLA is that's the acronym for a 3-letter acronym. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Semper Fi.
I yield.
Okay, team. Yeah, thanks. All right. What other questions? There's a lot there. There's So questions about RI builders, maybe? Yeah. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, like was it 35 or 37 units? Are these all intended to be like rental units?
Yeah, so the model, if the Dixie Fire Steering Committee is interested in moving the conversation forward, then I'll schedule a call with the principal of RRA, so Recovery and Reconstruction Advisors. They also, Kim knows them from Paradise. They were a developer down in Paradise as well. They're the longest continuing for-profit developer down there, and they have a long reputation. So your question is, are these all rental units? Yes. The core business model right now is where they would develop the sites. So each site would have 3 units on it. That would be a primary dwelling plus an attached junior ADU and a detached ADU. And this is by right in the state of California, no special exemptions, no special requirements. We have lot minimum sizes, which is 65 foot by 150 is the minimum, with a target is 75 by 140. Those are the top target lot sizes. So that is really great because those are a lot of our single family home sites in Greenville and also Chester, Quincy. So the way it would go is they would look at raising this initial capital, this investment capital that is necessary for them to basically do the development. They would do 6 sites, which yields 18 units in year 1, 5 sites in year 2, which is 15 units, and then 4 sites in year 3, which is 12 units, yielding 45 units on 15 sites. These are very much modeled more like a single family home kind of configuration because of what we heard very much from the community around what was desirable by the market, but also what the community wanted to see in their town. So when you think of the Rancheria site on, is that Pine Street and what's the street, John Hunter's
Rancheria.
Court? Yeah, the Rancheria's house site.
Oh, it's the corner.
On Main Street, just
Bush
around
and
the
Main.
corner from Bush.
Yeah, so on Bush and Main, the Rancheria did a 3-building there. Ours would have a two buildings. So it would have the primary unit with the junior ADU, and then a detached ADU with a 3-car garage underneath of it. And we have the plans and layouts that I'm happy to have Kelly with RRA run through the whole investment pitch with you.
Some may remember that in January of this year, we had RA builders up at our contractors meeting, our contractors fair. So that's so Kelly came up then to kind of, just get to know the area. So I know some on this call were in the room there. And of note, Kelly was recently added to the Campfire Collaboratives board. Just for background information. Other questions?
Other questions that you have either about the Almanor Foundation's commitment to housing and for us, a really good step would be for you guys to think about whether you wanted to partner with us on moving the next step.
Judy, I have a question. You had talked about, or you had said that you're sort of waiting for there to be some level of leadership, or that there hasn't been a level of leadership that has stepped up to move any of this forward. What's your ideal environment? Who would that be? What organization or person? And what does that look like for you or the housing committee?
I think and I will speak for myself, okay? I'm not speaking for the housing committee, but for myself, I think I had a hope that we could create a council, a housing council that had paying membership by businesses and entities, that we could move in that direction, and that the housing council would have its own, that we agreed to staff it for a year, but it would have a lot of leadership impetus. And so far that's just not developmentally where the council is. And so it's clear to me that leadership has to continue to come from the Almanor Foundation in partnership with other entities, which is why we're coming to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And then other partners? Oh, yeah, Greg, go ahead.
I mean, what would you expect to get from the creation of this council or these partnerships? I mean, I'm not understanding that part. Like, and leadership, I mean, what are you going to get from that? Are you going to, I mean, are we going to, I mean, Plumas is
Actually,
like, go ahead.
Yeah, so Greg, I mean, and this is, I know you're directing this at them, but for the same reason that there's a need for, or at least there has been a perceived need for, say, like the La Sierra Chamber Coalition, right? That in the absence of leadership and or strategic planning, let's say at our county government level, right? Not poking anybody in the eye here, but it just doesn't happen for a variety of reasons. Have been trod over for the last, anybody that has experience working in an unincorporated town, village, city, or anything they're like it in a county like this, like if it doesn't happen from the grassroots, it doesn't happen. So again, I don't want to step on what the Almanor Foundation or the Housing Council is up to, but in a lot of ways, we've seen this sort of model elsewhere to create a demand signal, for some type of long-term policy change and or strategic plan with our own county government to move forward and to do some of the heavy lifting. That's kind of my take on these things. So if we're thinking about housing as one component, economic and or really, I think those things, it's not economic development, it's really business development that I think gets, confused in both those sectors. But anyway, that's another sort of thing. But these are the things that there's a need for it, that, and there's a drive and a push by local entities to want to see it, but it's hard to collaborate. And it's also hard to find like a big sort of strategic arrow to follow on that path. So anyway, I would say hats off to y'all for at least for moving that ball in that direction. And then, whether it be here with the Dixie Fire Collaborative or the other 30 entities, nonprofits and organizations across the county that could also help. Sorry, did you want to finish that, Greg? And then
No, I think, so it's kind of like, almost like a lobbying group in order to get the government to move.
I would say advocacy.
All right.
Yeah, advocacy.
Yeah, I think that was the goal of the council when it was formed and it was started, was to build the kind of coalition of nonprofits and for-profits with a shared space and saying, this is what we want to prioritize. We're not seeing that really happen, to be honest. People are coming in and out of it. And what I think the Almanor Foundation, and I'll speak from outside the entity, but the Almanor Foundation has led on what is the strategic vision that is sustainable, and now has a couple implementation, these 4 kind of implementation that doesn't need a whole lot of, it doesn't need coalition building necessarily. It doesn't need leadership, all moving in this directions and things like that the Housing Council was trying to do, but didn't really do. It's really saying financially, and then from a direct leadership standpoint, do we all value these things, and can we put our resources towards that to make them happen, to basically get it to implementation? Because I think what can happen is kind of spinning in the coalition building. And right now we're really focused on, for me, these 45 homes in 3 years is a completely viable path forward right now. And through that, we'll build trust with the nonprofit and for-profit sector that we've collectively arrived at a solution that is viable and is getting executed on. And then with the DFC, there's a question kind of thrown at the steering committee, or that I have for this steering committee, is what is 3 years out, year out, 5 years out, what does the future kind of look like with the DFC? And if the goal indefinitely, that exists for 3 years, that's another thing. And with the Almanor Foundation, I think the goal is to exist
in perpetuity.
Yeah, there we go, in perpetuity. So there might be an entity that could hold housing.
I've got Sherry or Kest first, and then we'll go to Lida with questions or comments.
Right. So I heard 45 rental units, but I didn't hear how they're funded. So how do you fund 45 rental units? That sounds great.
Yeah, so it's an investment, not a grant or a loan, that can be made by nonprofit entities and for-profit businesses. And it's structured with a dividend return as a preferred shares in the developer, is basically it. So the developer raises money. The target raise is $5 million with a minimum raise of $4 million. And ideally, I'd have Kelly on here running through this whole spiel with you and running through the deck to show how this works. But you asked the question, Kat, so I'm going to pep you with the initial things that will, I guarantee, make more questions, is basically it. So I can guarantee that at the end of this. But basically, it's a business that raises investment capital from for-profit and potentially nonprofits, that has preferred shares, that has a set dividend return. Right now, it's locked to Fed rate at 5.25%. Once the investment goes in and clears, then that, say, $5 million is separated into 3 buckets. One is the housing development bucket. One is the investment dividend return bucket, to guarantee the dividends go back to the investors. And then the third is for operational expenses for the property management company. In the bucket, the biggest bucket, which is to develop the real estate, they go and develop the first 6 sites. 3 sites minimum is what they're targeting, but 6 sites in the first year would be the goal. They go and develop those. and then they refinance the property, refinance the value of the property to build back the equity that was in there at slightly lower than what it costs, meaning that they actually buy down the interest on the loan, the mortgage that they would take out once it's developed, to make it cash flow neutral. Meaning that the business isn't making money. Am I getting into the weeds?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
you
I'm
are.
gonna go through the end of this really quickly. Basically, the business, their business is cash flow neutral for their duration, which is 10 to 15 years, right? They're getting paid on the back of it when they refinance all of the properties at the end of the day. So they don't get paid on the front of it as the developer. The investors get paid out when it's refinanced on the properties in 5 years. I'm happy to have Kelly run through this and show you all the math that's mathing.
Hey,
Basically,
and
the bottom-
Kylie, we could probably set that up for a greater, like an in-depth description of what you just provided. I think is
Yeah,
good. for
whenever you
anyone,
want.
just so we can kind of get to light.
One thing is really quickly with that, we've already pitched this and ran this in front of Seneca Healthcare District, Plymouth District Hospital, Community Service District. We have SPI next week, and we're scheduling Collins. Then we're working with businesses and entities across the county as a whole. What's interesting is we're seeing many different options of how this could actually manifest to a real thing, with those that maybe couldn't be investors but could guarantee on rentals, those kind of things, so that it would basically get occupied really quickly. So you're not the only ones we're talking.
The bottom line for the Almanar Foundation is that we've worked hard with LMNRP for 2.5 years to develop a solution that we think will work in Plymouth County. And we need investors for this to get off the ground. We can put skin in the game, but we need a lot more investors to make this real. And that's why we have come to the collaborative to find out.
Yeah, so just to be clear, bottom line, you got the Almanor Foundation, specifically the Housing Committee, is asking for a monetary contribution from the Dixie Fire Collaborative to this project.
So right now where it's at is the Housing Committee is having the same conversation we're having with the Dixie Fire Collaborative. I came up with a matrix that I think is rough estimates for each one of the 4 categories and how much investment would be there. I'll kick that out to the Dixie Fire Collaborative. Think of this as a tool for a conversation. There's minimum thresholds that we're looking at, but think of this as a conversation for where are 4 areas that are directly implementable that can have a direct impact on housing in the county, and where and how the best utilization of funds is. So Patrick, I'll send that over to you this week.
Okay.
And the Housing Committee of the Almanar Foundation is moving. I mean, we're having a second meeting to have further, more in-depth discussion about this solution and our investment options. And certainly, I'm speaking for myself. I'm hoping that the Housing Committee will bring a recommendation forward at our November board meeting, because time is of the essence, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Time is of the essence.
All makes sense. We're gonna go Lida and then to Danny.
Pardon me?
Lida,
You're muted. There we go. You're good.
My question is more along the line of the leadership concept. The housing, is it council that it exists is basically, is that a county organization? Is that that isn't stepping forward with the leadership role?
No, the Housing Council is something that the Almanor Foundation felt, or the committee, the Housing Committee under the Almanor Foundation felt was something that was needed for the county to be able to move forward with attainable housing. So it's not a council appointed by anyone under the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
Tracy Ferguson has attended all of the meetings, as well as Roger Diefendorf was at the last meeting and presented some great information. it's trying to build the kind of collaborative like the LTRG was before it was the DFC.
And excuse me, go ahead.
No, I'm trying to understand if, are you looking for the DFC to be more in that leadership role or more in the financial contribution role?
I think it's open. It's open. I mean, right now, the leadership is being, the whole initiative is being driven by the Almanar. We welcome partners in leadership as well as in investment.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So to do the first property, right, which is like a single family home plus an ADU plus a JDU, what's the budget for like one home?
Hey, Matt, we're going to wait on that question because we're going to go to Danny first. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, down.
Yeah, actually, I was trying to drill in and get a definitive response to what is your purpose today as a TAF presenting to the DFC? Do you want us participation, leadership, or just participation? Do you want financial help? Which one?
I think I just responded to that question. We would love to have both leadership on housing, and we would love to have investment financing. Absolutely, both.
Yeah.
We're not coming to you like some, I don't know,
One thing,
cash cow.
yeah, like one thing I would clarify is that-
I understand that. I understand that, but the question was asked and Tyler dodged that question in the beginning. I didn't get a clear answer. You kind of answered that now as you answered just before, but I wanted to state it again because I had my hand up.
Great, thank you.
So just to clarify, I view this as one conversation of many, because the goal is putting faces to names and understanding that people are working on things across the county as a whole, rather than us coming in and saying we need, we need X amount of dollars for this thing. It's more of, hey, there's people in this county that have been working on housing pretty in-depthly and have looked at different solutions. We'd love to have more conversations with you. This is where we see need in financial support and also leadership support. That's really the purpose of this conversation. On the 21st, I would love to show you more in depth, and I'd be happy to schedule meetings that would have Kelly on there that could get into crazy nitty-gritty details of how this actually works. Well,
And also the next council meeting is scheduled for the 17th from 3 to 5. We've been meeting every month at your offices, and Patrick has been attending every single one of those meetings except the last one when he had a conflict. Any of you are welcome to come to a council meeting.
And that'll be Thursday, the 17th. We're going to go to Greg, then Matt, then Marcia. Go ahead, Greg.
I turn the mic on. So in your model, you've got a developer who he's a for-profit person, and that developer is also going to be do the property management, which I'm assuming is going to be a for-profit entity as well. Is that correct?
yes, it's the same entity.
Same entity, okay. And so, and this is affordable housing, and it's not like low-income housing. You don't need that you're trying to develop. Is that correct?
We're developing units that will rent out at market rate with additional subsidies. That's the goal.
Because I mean, like almost 40% of Plumas is below $50,000 a year. I mean, they're well below the median in California. So who's going to determine market rate in that regard? Because this have to make money.
Yeah, so the way it works is every way we can drop the cost of construction. This is why the housing or the wholesale entity is developed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think number one is I don't want to dodge your question, Greg. I can get into it as long as you want, but it's also going to take probably 15 minutes to address this one question that's going to open up other questions. So let me try to say it really simply. The developer needs a net zero profit margin, right? They're not making their money on the rentals of the units. They basically cash flow neutral. Okay. They make their money on the back of it on the equity built in the housing over time. So 10 to 15 years, basically.
Okay.
So any way we can reduce the cost of construction would reduce the rental rates necessary to rent those. Now, is that going to meet everything we need? No. That's why PlaceMate, which is a rent subsidization model, will help local workers that are verified workers with some subsidization to help them increase their being able to pay their rent. Does that make sense? So if you look at PlaceMate, the way it works is if a local worker can't pay, if it's $1,000 market rate rent, and they only can pay $1,800 or $800, then there's a $200 difference between the two. So that $200 comes in through the PlaceMate program. So that's why we're looking at different models that work together to basically build housing stock. Now, it's not fully dependent because we actually do have a lot of workforce that can afford market rates. Not everyone. Anyone that is below the income of like 80% to 60% and below, those are the individuals that should be going to federal and state programs, including the existing housing stock that we have available in Greenville, because those programs are really built for that workforce. So again, what we're looking at is 80% to 120. 80% in the county, if you run the math, I think it's 92,000 is the AMI right now. And can you verify that for me? 92,000 is the AMI across the county. Now, Greenville is different than Chester, which is different than Quincy, right? So we have different area mean incomes, but across the county. So if you do 80% of $90,000, that actually puts the market rate rents below what most can afford at the AMI.
Okay.
What's the market rate?
92,000 for a family of 4, just to clarify.
So at this, again, just because time is limited and we can do a deeper dive on the numbers on our meeting on the 21st and have that data prepared, Tyler, Kelly, somebody to do that analysis for or with, Greg and Matt. I think my guess is that your question is going to be comparable, but why don't we go ahead, just in the interest of time, Matt, let's get to your question.
Okay.
And then back to Marcia.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of these numbers and stuff, I mean, they're assumptions, okay? And when we build our first little triplex, reality will set and we'll see how much it really is, how much it is to do insurance, how much it is to build this thing. Is that the plan so assume this triplex will cost like $1.5 million for this thing to build it out? I mean,
actually, the triplex is 708,000 if I'm going off of my memory right now.
738.
For the triplex.
Sorry, 738,000. It's with tips
Okay.
panels.
Okay. So
structurally insulated panels. So what you're saying is do we adjust with market and kind of changes that go over time?
No. Let me just finish the question. So instead of thinking that we have to do something that so in terms of what we could do next is raise whatever it is, $800,000. Maybe the DFC puts in 400K, someone else puts in 200K, someone else puts in 200K, whatever, 800 grand. And we build one of these triplexes and we just do it like as soon as we can. We don't need other investors. We're all sitting on loads of money.
I appreciate that. The developer won't come up here because they don't get an economies of scale to run a management company on 3 units.
That's fine. So for the first one, you use a different builder. We don't necessarily need that developer if they're not willing to do one, because it's basically a set of plans. We get there's the construction part and then there's a property management part, right?
Can I interject here, Matt? I'd like to go deeper into all of this when we have the time and can really answer everybody's questions and give you guys some clarity, maybe where we're coming from. So I think that would be better to do it another time.
So
okay, yeah. My point, just to summarize, is if there's a way that we could do something to kickstart the thing with a small budget that we can all kick in without having to get other people, without having to get anything else, bang, and that would clarify a lot of this and just make sure the plan works, because it'll be much more appealing to a developer if we're like, hey, look, this is how it works. This is it.
I appreciate
Model
that.
home kind
You
of thing.
see how the how the money water flows. The cash doesn't work when it's smaller. Basically, you build one unit and then you're done. kind of thing. And so raising the capital necessary to get economies of scale and where it flows so that you can refinance the package and go to the next house is
Yeah,
really
my-
what they're interested in.
sure.
So
Yeah. My point is that first one doesn't have to be economic. It can all come from non-profits who, sure, if it costs $1.5 million, we don't need the money back. Boom, whatever, just put it in a thing, spend the money. Like if it's because it proves a point, you know, because then it's like, okay, this is what it looks like. It just makes it easier to sell the whole thing and to clarify these numbers and make sure it makes sense. And also it gets us something really much faster. Anyway, that's the
well, we're looking at we would target a breaking ground next year is basically it under this model. So Matt, I totally hear you. It doesn't include the circular kind of movement and waterfall of the money that's necessary. And to be honest, that's what a lot of the kind of the challenge could be, is we could pull our resources and build one home or one site with 3 homes. But the reality is we're trying to build a model that can sustain to build the thousands plus homes that we're looking at needing across the county as a whole. And so in that, this 45 units has been this kind of happy medium between the thousands that we need and one that would kind of stall us out after one. I've seen happen.
Thank you, Matt, for your question. And then we'll move to Marcia and then probably have time for Kim's question or comment.
Yeah, I was just curious how you would, out of the 45 rental units, how will you determine how they would go into, how many would go into each community? And would it be the whole county? Would it be just the Blue Star areas? How would that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially like with the DFC's funding, it's designated for, you know, the burn scar. And so I think it's a little bit of a conversation, but the target is Greenville. Greenville has the land, it has the available land at a cost that it works under this development model, and it has the need. It's also centrally located for both major areas, Chester and Quincy. Quincy has less available single family units in it. Chester has a bit more with the development at the far end of town. So at its core, it would be countywide, but targeted on Greenville.
It's just to jump in, it's very clear when we met with Sean McKenzie from Seneca, he was very clear that a lot of the workforce prior to the fire, a lot of workforce for Seneca Hospital District was in Greenville.
Yeah. And he basically, he said that he could, basically, if they're available right now, he'd rent out the units. 7 of the sites is what he said he could take on right now. And so, and that was same with PDH as well. So both are growing. Like PDH is building a skilled nursing facility, Seneca is building their new hospital. They're looking at expanding and needing housing stock. And there wasn't a concern around that being located in Greenville.
All right, Kim, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this is I've got a couple, but this is kind of like Marcia's question. So the lots themselves have not been identified yet, correct? But
no, so our process is not to look for a singular lot that kind of pigeonholes us into that. What we found is a strategy that gives us actually very minimal requirements. We need 65 by 125 lot size minimum, with a target of 75 foot by 140. That's the restrictions. Those are hard and fast restrictions because we can't really get the size that we need on it. So then from that, we've been tracking like local real estate and watching property move, and there's quite a few of those that enough that it would keep things moving. Is basically at 6 sites, I think, across the county. We could probably acquire right now 4 in Greenville right now, and then we haven't talked to potential landowners. There's also a way that land could be equity in this model for individuals as well.
And when you talk about financial commitment, have there been any financial commitments made to date from any of the organizations that you've talked to?
No, not yet. Everyone is at that kind of first conversation. It's probably going to take 4 or 5 to get to agreements based on raising funds in the past. So it takes multiple conversations. The hardest one to get is the lead person. And to be honest, it shows a concerted force if North Valley Community Foundation, DFC, and Almanor Foundation are together on it. It's not like a singular entity alone kind of doing their thing.
And your overall goal is to raise how much money?
5 million in total.
How much? 5 million, did you say?
Yeah, 5 million. Yeah, 5 million, 4 million minimum raise. And what I also have to remember is, or remind is, we have developed a model that other people are very interested in, especially larger scale foundations that work in rural communities. And so I'm actively having conversations with foundations that would come in at there as funders as well. So we don't have to look at our insulary community as the only ones providing for this, but we need to lead it at the end of the day. We need to be the ones with the first investment in, so to speak, and carry the weight of it.
Who do you see as being the fiscal agent for these funds on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so one option is Almanor Foundation is one option. There's also another organization that I've been talking to called HAC, Housing Assistance. There's too many acronyms. Thank you, Ben. Housing that is out of DC. They're a rural focused CDFI that is actually really interested in this model because they might be able to capture nonprofit, for-profit, and private accredited and non-accredited investors into a pool for us, and then be able to distribute that as either loan structures or direct investment on the developments and stuff. So they're really excited about what they're doing there. We have another meeting with them next week.
Complex problem. You guys put a lot of work into this, so appreciate that.
Thanks, Kim.
All right, hey team, thanks for the rundown. It's a little bit after 4. Oh, we got one more question or comment. I think we got a little bit of time for that from Kester Sherry.
Yeah, if we're finished with that, I'm really interested in your economies of scale issues, and would like to know if there's a time when I could talk with the Almanor Foundation Housing Committee about a much simpler and less expensive program for building houses for sale that would be parallel to the program you're talking about for rentals.
That would be great.
Tell me
we'd
when I
love
could
to.
meet with you and anybody else here that's interested, if we could meet and talk about that.
We'll follow up for sure.
Okay, please let me know. I would like to talk with you about that.
Great.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for everybody joining us from the Housing Committee. And I think, yeah, it sounds like there's enough out there to do kind of a deeper dive. At our next meeting is what I recommend on October 21st, same time. So we'll just work some coordination just to, identify maybe about a 30 to 40 minute block of time on that agenda, just to go.
Yeah, I think, Patrick, just to help out, I think what I'll do is I'll have Kelly do a video recording of the pitch because that takes about 45 minutes to run through all the elements of it. We'll send that out ahead of time. If the steering committee could watch that, write down any questions they have, then we can use that 30 minutes really effectively to answer questions, and for you also to get to know Kelly because they have an incredible reputation behind them, and it's been a pleasure getting to know him through this process.
Yeah, so a little bit of homework between now and then that'll help and it'll help move things along. And I think it's also clear. So just to recap, leadership, partnership, potential funding in the long term, and it also is clear that the Almanor Foundation and the Plymouth County Housing Committee Council rather, they're moving out with or without the DFC. So again, it's a project that we can either support, lend a hand to, or not, and then continue to monitor as things develop. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks, and I will see you at the Housing Council meeting on the 17th.
Great. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next agenda item. So the next item that we have here is the IVCSD EPA Community Change Grant. So a little bit of background on this. If you recall, a few last month, the IVCSD, specifically Adam Cox, had come with a potential request for $18,000, which would be half of a $39,000 contract fee to a grant writing organization known as Arcadis. Arcadis has been working here in Plumas County on the Dixie Fire, specifically with Plumas County in the recoupment of insurance debris funds dating back to 2021, heavily in 2022. So the Indian Valley Community Services District ended up securing that funding from the Indian Valley Parks and Recreation Department. So they each went halvesies at $19,000 a piece to get $38,000. I think my math is right there. And then the IVCSD secured that contract. So Arcadis is currently writing the grant on behalf of IVCSD for a potential of up to $20 million. So the $20 million would go to support the building of community center. The community center itself would be able to potentially house, would be essentially what the community center was, previously what we had, plus adding the prospect of the community or the county library, the Plumas County Library, and then also absorbing a town hall meeting space of what was once had across the street from the library on Highway 89 Crescent Street here in Greenville. The other project, and this, from what I understand, goes back even prior to the fire, but rumors about an indoor swimming facility. This is something that IVCSD still wants to pursue as they run the pool in Taylorsville. They would like to have a pool here in Greenville, and they would enclose it so that it could be a year-round facility, really catering to Plumas County residents, in addition to hosting, regional swim competitions, things like that, be a little bit of a revenue driver for the program overall. But a lot to get there between now and then. The Indian Valley Community Services District has drafted a letter and sent it to the Plumas County Board of Supervisors to have an agendized item on the board's meeting a week from tomorrow. So that's the 15th of October, where they're asking Plumas County for $1 million to support the developmental costs to get them out the gate on some of the feasibility and the planning around the facility itself, as the CSD will then provide space for public health, behavioral health, and social service departments here in Greenville. So that's actually been a good conversation since July, and having those department heads from the county involved, at least in discussing and appreciating the idea that they can deploy staff from Quincy to Greenville to serve not only the Indian Valley service area, but then also Chester, Canyon Dam, parts of Hamilton Branch. As it stands right now, some of those services, if you want to get them, you got to drive from those parts down to Quincy. And if they had remote office space that was obviously closer, not only for staff to meet in the middle, but then the service, the people that are trying to access the service, that could benefit them as well, and reduce the commute for all involved. So anyway, good conversations there. So what, anyway, so that was just background. What this agreement is that for the community change grant with the Environmental Protection Agency, it requires a community-based organization to be a partner with the Community Services District. And so they've asked that the North Valley Community Foundation, along with the Dixie Fire Collaborative, be that community partner. In the draft agreement that I provided along with the agenda and the minutes for this meeting, or for last meeting, about 90-95% of it is a little bit boilerplate. specifically in section 1, it talks about roles and responsibilities. And that's where I cue your eyes toward. Part of that is it really kind of describes what the DFC is in its existence right now. It says subchapter, which would really just be a sub-organization of the North Valley Community Foundation. And Bill Hubbard, who's on the call right now, is the general counsel and one of the founding members of the North Valley Community Foundation. He and I talked about it last week, and he reviewed it. And I'll put Bill on the spot here just to kind of get some of his takeaways. But it was provided by the grant writer from Arcadis. This agreement is one of a couple dozen components to the overall grant. Most of the grant contributions are all coming from the CSD because they would be the primary awardee for the grant. As part of our process here, it would be documenting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's clear that we can't vote on it because I'm missing a member, but I'll see if we can get Matt back on the horn here. But really, it'd be documenting this process in our minutes, and then moving forward to have the language amended as necessary, and then submit that back to the CSD as with the partnership agreement. Bill, did you want to provide anything? I'm going to see if I can get Matt back on this call so we can vote, Matt or Shelby. Or no, Shelby's still on. Okay.
Sure. I've gone over it and talked with Patrick about it. It doesn't appear to be as if there's a huge responsibility that DFC under NVCF would have. And I think it depends a whole lot on how the grant application turns out. First of all, none of this applies if there is no grant. The dollar amount apparently is flexible on what would be potentially awarded here. Is that correct according to your understanding, Patrick?
Yeah, so they're asking the request is going in for 20 million, which this community change grant has been in effect for a couple years, and the grant cycle ends. It's been a rolling grant application process, and so the grant deadline ends in this November of 2024. The CSD is looking, well, Arcadis on their behalf is looking to have the grant in no later than the end of October, specifically the 23rd, with a little bit of a buffer in there so that if there are any sort of, administrative or clerical errors that need to be adjusted prior to the official deadline, that there's that back end time in order to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, I would hope that we would have a chance to take a look at the draft of the application itself. This is kind of a small piece that is a basic requirement by EPA, the grantor in this situation. And so I don't see this as really committing to much of anything. Other than to say we're a community partner that would be willing to provide input to CSD. And if there was something else to be done, it would actually be through some sort of a sub-award or whatever. As I read the document, it's really more just advisory type of capacity here. So I don't have any problem with it. And I don't expect our executive team would. I'll brief them on it, but I'm not going to spend any time going through details with them or anything like that. I do have a few suggestions that I'm going to make, and a couple of little corrections and modifications in that. I'm going to have that to Patrick within the next 3 days here, and he will in turn pass it on to Community Services District to see if there's any objection or any problems that they see in it. Does that sound like the right game plan? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Thank you for that
pretty
clarification.
straightforward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Questions, comments? Yes, Danny?
Yeah, so who was, or what entity was the supporting, other party in the grant to be support the initial writing of the grant?
Who is it?
Yes,
It's a company called Arcadis,
no.
A-R.
not the writer, where the other 18K came from to write the grant.
Oh, the Indian Valley Parks and Recreation District.
And why aren't they considered as a partner? Because they're partnering in the submission of the plan.
I think because in the long run, since they're looking at either like joining, right, annexing, like that the Parks and Rec will become part of the CSD. There's the I don't know the strong likelihood, but there's definitely the potential for that. The CSD is already managing like the recreation position, right? They pay that position for the Parks and Rec, and the CSD also owns the actual parks and maintains them. So just from like an efficiency perspective and the local area, LAFCO, local area, I can't remember what the F stands for, commission, that in the long run, it just may make more sense for them to merge. So the prospect of them being the long-term partner, it could just kind of, it might be a little flimsy, that's all.
Okay, so.
Danny, I'm sorry to interrupt. Danny, was your question why they were not in here as the partner
Right,
in
correct.
the agreement? Yeah, my understanding, well, both of those organizations, the Park and Rec and Community Service District, are special districts under California law, as I understand it.
That's true. They are both special
Yeah,
districts as well.
and what EPA under this community change grant program requires is a nonprofit organization to partner. And so that's why they chose DFC / NVCF.
Right, so that answers part of my question, but there still is that yellow light that went on saying, alluding to what has been rumbling out there, that the IVCSD is looking to absorb the recreational district. So I just, all right, so, but the idea, what you're saying is Bill's, I hear you're saying that they needed a nonprofit to support that, and maybe a larger community-based interest, which would be exemplified by DFC and VF being there. So I hear that.
Exactly. Thank you.
I yield.
Thanks, Danny. Well, this may, for right now, this may be kind of a moot point because I've only got 5 of you and we don't have a quorum right now. And I can't get Matt back on the call.
We're gonna get a revised version of this agreement anyway, right?
Yeah, we are. I just,
But we can talk about it.
Days equal weeks and weeks equal months around here. So
Yeah, but we can agree in principle if this is a good move forward, and
yeah.
on the
And then
by
yep,
email.
100% Lida, we could do that.
Patrick, I don't recall, you probably have read the operations or operating policies for DFC. Isn't there an ability to vote by unanimous consent via email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought there was, so.
Yeah.
We'll get once we get the revised version, I'll send that out to everybody and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
Yes, Marcia.
I think it really is pretty straightforward here, and in addition, nothing really happens until they get a grant. So
Yeah, we
Yes,
just talked about leveraging our money for the greater good. It just seems like this is a great way to do it.
Yeah,
I agree.
and we don't even have to pay anything. There's no funding. Yeah. So,
Okay, yeah, just like.
yeah, rock bottom price of free 99.
I just think
Um,
people should hear the discussion though, and that's, I'm disappointed that we'd have people voting without hearing the discussion.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna have to do this again, Danny. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
Like, we'll do it via
but-
email. No one's gonna vote today.
Well,
And
no, understood, but the idea of a unanimous consent by email was floated as an idea. I'm not sure that would be viable, well, sure it's viable, anything's viable. I'm not sure it would be advisable without sufficient people being a part of the discussion. That's my 2 cents, take it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. But at the same time, it's also not fair to the process to slow things down. And it's also not fair to the process not to get a heads up when people aren't going to be here so that we don't have a quorum. So all business stops just because we don't have participation.
Yeah, I hear you, Patrick. I know, I hear you.
So that's all. I
Forward,
mean, I only
forward
heard from one
march.
person that they wouldn't be here, and that was Kaylee. It's just common courtesy. Okay. So we'll table that for now. And then next item, which again, we can discuss, but no action, is get back to this truck and trailer. So once again, the Hope Crisis Response Network grant that was undertaken to do the work up at Copper Creek Camp for volunteer housing. Again, that project had stopped at the 6 winterized cabins and the renovation of the winterization of a bathroom. So it did not go to its full potential because the prospect of Hope Crisis Response Network coming here it's just flat out not going to happen. So HCRN, the way that their process works is that they work in counties that provide the Cal Home Grant. Plymouth County does not have the Cal Home Grant, and as such, that's one major limiting factor for HCRN. So as part of the initial grant, HCRN received a work truck to work for their project manager, as well as a tool trailer. It's a 16 by 8 foot tool trailer that has a variety of hand tools and power tools in it, as well as the truck is a 2018 GMC Sierra 1-ton dually. So we've talked a little bit about this over the last month, and both that trailer and truck, the truck was just delivered last Tuesday by HCRN. They had it in their possession. The registration elapsed on 30 September. So they had it paid through 30 September of 2024. I had them just take it next to the trailer. The trailer's just been sitting up at Copper Creek Camp since it was last used. So they're parked side by side one another. So potential receivers of these items, part of the grant had said that these items, once HCRN was done with them, could go to an organization that kind of to the greatest community good, something to that effect. So we've talked about, again, the community services district potentially for the truck. I know the Dixie Fire Canopy project was brought up a couple times ago. And then I've been looking out and trying to solicit organizations like other nonprofits to receive the trailer. Reached out to the Feather River Resource Conservation District. They don't have a use for it. They said thanks, but no thanks. I reached out to Plymouth Rural Services to see if they had a use for it. They said thank you, but no thank you. I talked to Kest at the Rotary to see if they may have a use for it. He said probably not them. So trying to look at different organizations that have a utilitarian need for a tool trailer. The other one that came up and they are interested is the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship organization. So Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, they operate down in Quincy, and they do trail making and rehab in the National Forest. One of their programs is the Connected Communities program. You've probably seen a little bit about that. And so one of the things that they do is not only with their normal work crew, but they also do periodic seasonal volunteer trail days where, community members, families can go out on the trail and help them build and dig trail. They, for those types of purposes, they do have the a need for a tool trailer. And they responded in the affirmative that they could get some use out of it. I contacted the Plumas Fire Safe Council. I've yet to hear back from them. And I contacted them, I think 3 weeks ago. I'm going to try again. But nobody has contacted me. So, you know, I mean, I've made it pretty clear. I said, hey, we got a tool trailer. Is this something you guys want to use? In my mind, if that's something that they wanted to use, somebody would have responded in a day or two. But I haven't heard from them. But I'm trying to think of organizations that do like that. Yeah, that do work. Another one that somebody had, I haven't reached out to this group, but the Feather River Land Trust. I don't know what they would use it for. But that was another nonprofit that was mentioned. Ah, Matt is back.
Hi, Pat, I'm back in.
Thanks, Matt.
But I've got like 2% left on my battery, so that's where I am.
You've got what, Matt?
Sorry, I've got like 2% left on my battery.
Oh, okay. So you're low charge. Okay,
So,
I got you.
Exactly. So I can vote, but I have to vote quickly.
That's okay. We've kind of moved on to another topic, but we were talking about the truck and trailer and just some of the local organizations that have or have not expressed interest in receiving either one. And I just kind of turned it over to the group to discuss any other thoughts around that.
Well, it sounds like we have two groups that have expressed an interest. The Dixie Fire Canopy Project. And now I forgot the second one.
And the Community Services District, both are interested in the truck.
And then also the trail people.
And then the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, they're interested in the tool trailer.
Okay, so we have two different things and not everybody's interested in both of those three people.
Well, so with regard to the trail, I mean, in the way that if I contacted anybody, I didn't say like it was like a package deal, you know, like
Okay.
there's a truck and a trailer at your disposal.
Mhm.
Just thinking that just having the opportunity to spread it around a little bit so that no one singular entity got, you know, two assets, I guess. And just try to sort of think about who would get the most out of
Okay.
it. Greg, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, that's a $50,000 truck. And so my question would be like, for example, with the canopy project, how is the $50,000 truck going to make their job better? You know, I mean, I'd rather sell it and put it into the trees. Yeah, I mean, a $50,000 truck. I mean, they could use the trailer, for example. I mean, I could really see that. But that truck's designed to really do big work. They're already doing what they can do. I mean, do they really need a $50,000 truck to ride around in? I don't think so.
No, that's a good point. That's good, kind of with this with the CSD, given like the level of utility work that they do. That's why it kind of made sense that if that they could definitely use a truck like that, either with the services, the operations department, or the even the fire department as another rig.
Yeah, I mean, but you could buy two used trucks that are very nice. I mean, you know, get a couple of F-150s that are like 8-10 years old for the cost of that one truck.
Yeah, no, definitely something to think about. Danny, you have your hand up.
Yeah, mine was just supporting. I think one of the ideas was long-term, not just short-term, 1 or 2 years. So the longest term utilization of the entities would be looking at the Indian Valley Community Services District is the longevity there that probably could be utilized most there is what I'm looking at of the people that have got possibilities for using it, and they could use both.
Yeah, that definitely is something to consider, is the kind of the longevity of the organization, and that these items will be used for the next 3, 5, 8, 10 years, get good honest work out of them. So that's definitely a consideration.
And those are in the burn scar. I mean, that entity is working in the burn scar.
The CSD is. And then the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, they go all over the county. I mean, if, you know, so it's something to think about. And part of the Connected Communities plan is to go up and through Indian Valley and move on the other side towards Susanville.
And they're interested in the truck or the trailer?
The trailer.
Yeah, they probably could use a 4x4 instead of the dually in terms of getting around for.
Yeah, I agree, Greg. That's a big vehicle to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nimble, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Any additional thoughts?
I mean, it'd be nice if we could just make a decision about that. It's kind of been hanging around for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. So we do have, with Matt back on the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 steering committee members, so that is enough to vote. A recommended motion could be to determine, so a recommended motion could be to the Dixie Fire Collaborative could manage the truck. Let's see, how could we phrase this? Manage for the Indian Valley Community Services District to take possession of the truck. And if there's no other ideas, the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship to take possession of the tool trailer. Okay, so Marcia likes that.
I like that.
Lida likes that. Okay.
Anybody
Yeah.
else?
So
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll sponsor that and I'll vote yes, just because my battery might run out anytime.
Okay, well, so let's just, to make this official, Marcia, you had the first thumbs up. So if you just come on, unmute and say that you will make the motion. Oh, you're muted.
I make a motion that we give the truck to the IVCSD and the trailer to the trail stewardship.
Okay.
I second the
Sierra
motion.
Buttes Trail Stewardship.
Danny seconds.
Danny seconds. Okay, and then we'll do a roll call vote for this.
Go
Marcia
Matt
Roby?
first.
And Matt votes yes.
Okay, so I've got Matt Fogarty, Marcia Roby,
Yes,
Lida Scoggin,
What? Yes.
Danny Steyer,
Yes.
Greg Walsh,
Yes.
and Shelby Lung.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much for that.
Thanks, Matt, for coming back.
Thanks for
You're
coming
welcome.
back. Now, so we got that accomplished. Great job, everyone. Appreciate that. And with regard to the partnership agreement with the for the community change grant, did we still want to table that? Even though we got Matt back on the line, but get the revised copy and then socialize that again with other members?
I think so.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay, that's fine. We've got a little bit of time on that, so we can do that. Okay,
Awesome.
then that is what we will do. All right, thank you all very much for that. So, let's see, I've got 4:34, so we will move on a little bit earlier to our committee member updates. Lida, do you have anything that you'd like to update the team on?
Just the Dixie Fire Canopy project did come out to Warner Valley last weekend, and everybody was very happy with the work they did and very pleased that they got funding for it. So that was a plus. And I have now signed up for that grant writing workshop. Forgotten the date, but at end of October.
Yes, that's right. It is at the end of October. It's I believe it's the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st, and that's through the
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And that's,
Yeah.
I'm going to advertise that a little bit. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to continue to advertise it via email, but the Almanor Foundation is hosting a nonprofit mixer here in Indian Valley at the Rock and Gym in the Indian Valley Museum I always get it confused, at the Rock and Gem Museum on the 16th. So I'm going to just do some face-to-face advertisement of that grant writing opportunity, just so we can fill up those spots. Because that's a big help that the Sierra Nevada Conservancy is doing in partnership with us. And that's got some homework with it too, is it's great for members or for individuals to come with their grant writing project, and that in real time, you'll craft your grant application with their assistance. So that's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, so.
Great. Thank you, Lida. Marcia, any updates for the committee?
I do not have any updates.
Okay, well, thank you. Danny Steyer, any updates for the team?
No, I don't have anything further than I said at the start, so, nope. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Greg?
One thing that I don't have any updates, but I'm really kind of curious about the Plumas Unified School District.
Oh,
And what's going on with that. And one thing that it occurred to me is like with the collapse of the Chester Fire Department, when I first got up here, there was the embezzlement, in the Community Services District. There was embezzlement in the just had it in Quincy. I'm wondering if this needs to be investigated, that they tried to slide this in this way. If there's actually something that there's, an audit might be called for or something. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I do. I mean, they being the Unified School District, they have an audit that's scheduled every year anyway. That's part of as they do their school by school, as they do their attendance and how they receive their funding based off of the California Block Grant for Education. So that's part and parcel to what they do, and there's a tremendous amount of oversight. At this point, to answer your question, Greg, the Plymouth Unified School District Board on Wednesday when they meet, they will, there was a story today in the Plymouth Sun that it looks like they're going to either rescind the resolution completely of what they voted on September 11th, or at a minimum, at least delay it for further public hearing and input. So it was described that it would go into effect on November 10th, 2024. Thanks for bringing this up. I did want to discuss this. It was the consultant group that worked on behalf of the school district to put that resolution in place in the first place had reached out to the county about a week and a half ago, the county specifically being Tracy Ferguson, who said, hey, the school district voted for this. Y'all ready to start administering this program of collecting these fees? And Tracy kind of scratched her head and then took it over to Mike Coelho, who's the building director, the building department director. And so none of that had occurred. And so it caught everybody a little unaware of even what this was, even though it had first been brought up by the school district board in July, and then again in August, and then voted on in September. Now, sometimes what happens with summer school board meetings is that there's just not a lot of attendance because it's in the summer and it's kind of business as usual. And then things, folks get unaware, like we all were with regard to this quote unquote development impact fee. But on Friday, Adam Cox, the general manager from the CSD, had written a letter on behalf of the CSD stating that they were going to prepare to have a special board meeting on this past Saturday, so that they could enter into litigation against the Plymouth Unified School District to halt their resolution for the development impact fee. And the board president, Dave Keller, had responded saying that they will more than likely rescind it on Wednesday the 9th. So I think once it became aware of what it involved and everything that was going into it, it caused everybody to kind of take stock of really what it was. So in case you weren't tracking on what it was going to be starting November 10th on residential housing, a $5.17 per square foot fee. And then on Industrial and commercial, I think it was 84 cents a square foot. And then on rental facilities, it was like 17 cents a square foot. That the school district would collect on any building permit. And the kicker is that those permits wouldn't be approved. They can't be approved until that fee is assessed. So that was going to add in another layer of bureaucracy that, you fill out your permit, it gets reviewed potentially at the building department, but then it gets kicked over to the school district for them to review and then assess that fee, which was going to be a lot. So looks like cooler heads are prevailing, at least for now. And they're gonna have to walk that back a bit. Yes, Danny.
Yeah, and the question I had also was that, what about, I heard that any rebuild within the burn scar was gonna be exempted what was the original square footage.
Yeah, so that so in the drafting of the resolution, it said that rebuilds as a result of natural disaster, i.e. a fire, a wildland fire, would be exempt. However, there were two caveats to that. One was if the rebuild was larger than the previous existing structure. So the example that I put into the email to you all, that if you were rebuilding a 1-for-1 swap, a 1,500 square foot home for a 1,500 square foot home, and you're the original owner, you're fine. If you were the original owner and you were rebuilding your instead of a 1,500 square foot home, you're adding 500 additional square feet, you would have to pay the development fee on the additional 500 square feet to build it if you're building a 2,000 square foot home. Or if you purchased property in the burn scar, right? So you weren't the original homeowner, but you bought a lot and you wanted to rebuild, then you as a new owner would have to pay that development fee.
Would they have to pay the entire development fees?
Yeah. So then you would be, yeah.
So that would discourage people from,
100%. And so I think the wording that Adam Cox used in his email when they were with the potential for litigation was, "You have signed Greenville's death warrant," is essentially what he had said. Because I mean, it's bizarre. By assessing an additional, which would be tens of thousands of dollars on a residential build, it would be discouraging development.
Yeah, it completely, the whole presentation we just heard from the Almoner Foundation, it would scuttle that.
Yeah.
And the justification was that there was so many new housing starts. And it's like, where are they?
There were two housing communities in the Portola area that they used for justification, which both, I think, at least one was completed in 2006. And one is still, the Portola Highlands and then Portola Heights. I don't know, but that there was going to be this anticipated growth based off of that. I don't know. I think I think a lot of times these consulting companies, they seek out school districts and sell them on these plans and say, hey, this is a way that you can increase some funding for your facilities. All you have to do is follow these steps. And I don't know that that's what happened here. I don't want to speculate, but it wouldn't be the weirdest thing. I mean, that happens, right? Is that it's unwittingly the school district kind of hears of a program and it seems good at first. And then once you realize the second and third order effects of it, then it sours. So, yes, Danny?
So the other question was, Governor Davis, or not Davis, I couldn't say him, Davis, I mean,
Newsom
is non-signing of tax benefits or anyway?
Yeah, so in his veto letter, he described that to tax exempt those dollars right now is not, it's incongruent with the budget that was passed and the deficit that already exists. So the background that I heard is that that's signaling to, specifically Dolly and Dolly, Senator Dolly, Brian Dolly, and Assemblywoman Megan Dolly, who represent our county in the California State Legislature, that do this again, but have it in the budget cycle so that those dollars are accounted for, so that tax exemption is accounted for in the final budget that would go through in 2025. So that group, after the Fire USA went to their conference a few weeks ago, talking with Kevin Goss, who's who's been working with them on the advocacy at the federal level for the exemption. That's something that they're going to try to work with Senator Dolly and Assemblywoman Dolly on, so that it's essentially a funded tax exemption. And it's accounted for in the next budget cycle.
All right, good. So reattack. This is
Yep.
again.
Yep, it's not done.
not
It's
dead.
down, but it's not out.
Right, okay. All
Yep.
right.
But yeah. All right. Greg, thanks for bringing that up. And as you said, you're going to be on vacation for the next couple, so you will miss the 21st steering committee meeting. You said you're going to be in Mammoth?
Yeah, I'm leaving on like the 14th. So I'll probably miss that meeting and I should be back on the 22nd or the 23rd.
Okay. All right, no worries. Thanks.
Okay.
Shelby, do you have anything that you'd like to provide to the team?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank Kim and Bill for being on. I know you wanted to hear what the Almanor Foundation was up to, so thanks for sticking around for that. But then thanks for participating in the rest of the meeting, just adding some context where needed. Are there any other questions or comments from anybody on the call? All right, and with that, may I have a motion to adjourn at 4:47?
Lyda moves to adjourn the meeting.
All right, thank you, Lyda. Second?
Second,
Thank you, Danny.
you bet.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Hi, guys.
Thank
All
you,
right, Thank you all
Patrick.
very much.
Yeah.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Bill.
evening.
Thanks, Ken.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
La vista.